Hi guys, today I'm going to talk about inward elbow strikes here. So in a lot of my videos I haven't used inward elbow strikes too much because frankly I'm kind of bad at it, but I would like to get better. And while I've been practicing this a little bit in the background, here are at least some of the items that I've picked up thanks to other speedbaggers and also through my own practice on ways to get better at this. So the challenging part, inward elbow strikes. Normally, most of your techniques, at least as far as your hands are concerned, are pretty much just extension based. Meaning, you stretch out your hand using your elbow as kind of a hinge to make contact with the bag, and then retract that hinge to hit it from different sides. Now, the concept is pretty much the same too. Whenever you're hitting it from the sides as well too, because yes, there's a little bit of movement from your shoulder, but most of the motion is compacted into the hinge of your arms opening and closing, from your elbows. With inward elbow strikes, usually there's not going to be a lot of motion that's generated from this hinge movement. Really, it's more about torquing your body appropriately and kind of maintaining this line within your fist and your elbow. So that's been a little bit of a difficulty spike for me, but let me try to show you what it looks like. So, or even just single, right? So here's what it looks like when I try to add in the fist as well too. Now for me, the outward elbow variation where I make contact with the elbow first and then pretty much untorquing my hand through for that second point, that's quite a bit easier for me because I've been practicing that a lot longer. So part of the thing that I consciously have to think about when I do the inward elbow variation is I almost have to make a physical cue to myself as if I was reaching my hand and then I'm just touching my opposite side shoulder. Now, of course, I'm going to be exaggerating it a little bit here, but the point of this little tip is that you want your arm from your hand to your elbow to ideally be plane and parallel to the bag at the point of contact, like so, right? And a good way to ensure that you're not hitting it from like an exaggerated angle, like a 45 downward degree elbow or going upwards, is making sure that you tap your shoulder here as a physical cue. Because then if you also unfold it, you should have the correct arc in which to contact the bag. Now, one other consideration you can do for this is maybe reconsidering the height of your body in reference to the location of the speedbag drum in the bag. Sometimes you may need to lower or increase your height with respect to your platform and bag. It's not shown here, but I'm actually standing on quite a few foam pads and stuff to raise my level. Otherwise, if I was down here, right, then I have to significantly bring my elbow upwards for these, and that's a little bit more straining on me. It can be done, but it's not ideal because I have to put in that much work. So I'm standing on a few foam pads to make sure that this is a little bit more level with my face, and then that way these inward elbow strikes are going to be easier for me. Okay. So one variation you can do is just the alternating doubles. double inward elbow, double outward elbow. 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2. And then here you're just kind of getting comfortable with how much your body is torquing and turning with this while trying to maintain the correct, level of plane of your arm and elbow relationship. It's almost as if, this is a bit oversimplified, but you want to imagine as if you're rolling the speed bag along your arm and elbow, right? Because the point of this little regressive exercise is you want to be able to contact the bag at the same spot each time. So like this. Okay, reduce it down again. Look, I realize I look a little bit silly doing this, going very slow and just pretty much doing a level 0 version of the actual exercise. But sometimes when you're stuck, it's important to break down each of the more difficult techniques into more simple, digestible blocks. So let me talk about the quad. So the quad is 4 consecutive hits consisting of a double outward elbow, chained immediately afterwards with an inward elbow. So it looks something like this. But there are multiple ways in which this technique can go a little bit awry. Some people may have issues with the outward elbow itself here. I myself have problems with the inward elbow because, as you can see here, it requires just the right amount of touch and momentum in order to create the correct amount of rebounds. So some way that you can regress and make the more bite-sized version of these techniques is 1, use the double outward elbow, put a little bit of a break, and then do the double inward like this. So and at the very beginning, it's perfectly okay to go very slow. It's perfectly okay to have a little bit of wasteful movement or like you're using too much motion. That's okay because you want to use that to set yourself up as like a baseline to start from. And then as you practice it and get more proficient at it, of course, you're going to reduce the wasted movement. So it'll be a little bit cleaner. So, let's step up the difficulty just a little bit. So if you're getting comfortable with doing the alternating double outward rebound, double inward variation, then you could step it up and do the triple version of it. So in this case, it would look like a triple outward elbow, which is, so first elbow, same side fist, opposite side fist. Okay. Then you can then do the triple inward elbow hit, which looks like opposite fist, same side fist, same side elbow. So, and I'm just using a light forward circle punch here, just to give me that little bit of momentum, because doing it just from a dead standstill is difficult. Reason why I hit it off a little bit at first is to give myself momentum in which to kind of feed the feel and feed the rebound, and then use that to kind of properly calibrate how much tension and contact I'm making with the bag. Because ideally, when you're practicing these types of techniques, you want to practice it when the ball's in motion so you can be comfortable with hitting it with that correct amount of pressure and momentum. So, triple, triple. Alright, let's go slower. You notice that I did it just for pretty much my left side, right? Let's switch it over to where I'm now using my right side, okay? So that'll look like so. Outward, inward, outward, inward, outward, inward, outward, inward. And so you can work that alternating triple outward into triple inward using both your left side and then your right side. So now, the thing you can do now is you can try to put it together now. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll see that I'm not using a lot of power with this. Reason being is that all of my hits occur consecutively within a very small time interval. I don't want to hit it too hard because then this makes my rebound impossible to follow up on the next rebound. That's why when you're doing this technique, I would recommend that you work it kind of find a pace that works for you, like even if it's medium fast, like something like this, right? Or if you can't do that, you know, try breaking it down again into the different components, right? Right? But then try to find the slowest version of the quads that you can do. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then yeah, you can also do that too. So after each quad, just throw in a forward circle punch to give you that momentum. So that way it will set the rebound for you as well. If you want to also work on, you know, if you're a little bit weaker on the double outward elbow variation of it, after the quad, just do that. Double outward, linking. So, I'm not the best guy on inward elbows. There's plenty of more people who are way more adept at this technique, but that's not the intention of my video. Is to kind of provide an area that I'm obviously a little bit weaker in, but it also shows me actively going through the learning process on this. And sometimes it's kind of helpful to see a beginner explain things on these, starting from like a ground zero level, or at least, you know, a bit lower than ground zero level for me. So that way you can try to pick up and identify, you know, the areas that you're struggling with, and then work accordingly to deconstruct those into more bite-sized portions. So let me attempt to get a little bit ambitious and show a couple more things that you can do to advance the quads once you're comfortable with it. Quite a lot of speedbaggers do the consecutive quad. So normally with the quads, after the fourth hit, your body is torqued and out of the way for the bag to rebound. If you can, you can also leave that fourth elbow there so it'll rebound back on that same side elbow, kind of like this. Right? And the reason why this can be a very interesting technique is then you can feed back the quad the opposite way without any delay, or you can string into other techniques. So let me And another nice thing about that too is that you can actually use the quad into your regular flow, because using the quads, you can then space it into or transition it into rolling. You can transition it into bumping. So for example, so hopefully this gives you guys a couple of light bulbs and ideas to work with on your next practice of this session. And also this can be used to chain in with different elbow combinations, such as the upward variation. So and then of course the but this all requires you to at least be able to be comfortable with each of those different components, because there are a lot of moving parts within the inward elbow strikes. There's a lot of moving parts within the double outward elbow strike, and then the complexity increases when you try to piece that together into a quad and then make other derivatives off of it. So if you ever feel like you're running into a bit of a stumbling block in your learning, I highly recommend you to try to find ways to make it more bite-sized. To try to find ways where you can take what you already know as a heuristic and try to find ways to implement that a little bit more naturally into more unknown techniques. So, for example, with like a fist rolling or linking, once you get very good at those, it'll seem like you're very relaxed with it, right? This looks pretty effortless, right? And then whenever you transition into learning some of the other stuff, you may notice that you're a little bit more tense here, right? One of the things that you can try to do is to match the amount of ease and casualness that you had with a master technique, and then try to reattain that same level of mastery with an unlearned technique. So for example, these, right, I'm obviously putting a little bit too much energy. So how do I cut this down? And you don't have to work your newer techniques in isolation. If possible, try to string them in with techniques you're already well familiar with, because one, this builds confidence, and two, this builds the neural networks in your mind to connect those and make patterns off of it. What better way to make new patterns by taking something that you already know as a base guideline and then try to take the mastery of that and help to streamline to learn the next technique. So it's more symbiotic to learn techniques, in combination or like in synergy, rather than trying to learn each technique in isolation. Because if you learn all the techniques in isolation, then you eventually have to learn how to string them together. And rather than taking those as two steps, try to string together small techniques that are somewhat compatible and then scale them up to where they're a bit more impressive. So I hope this helps